HOA official tried to ruin my home. Here's how I got the ultimate revenge. It all started on a quiet afternoon when I received an unexpected knock on the door. Standing there was the HOA official, a stern-faced man with a clipboard in hand. He greeted me coldly and immediately launched into a list of so-called violations that I supposedly had on my property. I was taken aback. How could I have violated anything when I had followed every guideline to the letter? But he didn't want to hear any explanations. He went on about how my fence was in improper height, even though it was within the legal limits, and how the bushes I had planted in my front yard were too wild for the community standards. It felt like he was looking for a reason to pick on me. I tried to explain that everything was within the regulations and that I had even consulted with the HOA before making changes. But his response was nothing short of aggressive. He dismissed my arguments, saying that the rules were the rules, and that I would be facing fines and penalties. What made it worse was his attitude. It was as if he had all the power, and I had no right to question him. I could sense the arrogance in his voice, as though he truly believed he could walk into anyone's home and dictate what they could and couldn't do. Little did he know, this would be the last time he'd have such control over my property. The situation took a drastic turn when the HOA official handed me a formal notice with a chilling threat. He claimed that if I didn't comply with his demands to remove the bushes and adjust my fence, he would report me for structural violations, which could lead to severe penalties and possibly even legal action. But that wasn't the worst part. The real shock came when he casually mentioned that the next step would involve destroying parts of my property to bring it into compliance. He wasn't just talking about a fine or a slap on the wrist. He was suggesting that my backyard,
this is a violation! You have to leave now!
What? This is insane!
Rules are rules! Get out!
How could anyone, let alone a community official, have the nerve to talk about destroying someone else's property over what seemed like trivial matters? He had no regard for the time, money, and emotional effort I had invested in making my home a place of peace and comfort. It felt like a power trip. He was using his position to intimidate and bully me, all while showing no understanding of the personal attachment I had to my property. My heart raced, and a flood of anger began to rise as I realized that if I didn't take a stand, I could lose everything. This was no longer just about petty violations. It was about my right to live in peace and maintain my home without fear of unjust authority. At this point, I had reached my breaking point. I wasn't going to let this HOA official push me around any longer. The more I thought about the threat he made, the angrier I became. It was one thing to make demands, but it was another to threaten my home and the work I had put into it. I decided it was time to confront him directly. I gathered all the documents that showed I had followed the HOA's guidelines, including emails where I had asked for prior approval on everything. Armed with this information, I marched over to the HOA office to demand answers. When I arrived, I walked straight to his office, not giving him any chance to make excuses or hide behind his authority. The moment he saw me, his smug expression faded. I asked him why he had threatened to destroy my property without even trying to resolve things through proper communication. His attempt to deflect, saying I was out of compliance without any valid reason, only fueled my frustration further. I pointed out his overreach and the ridiculousness of his demands. I told him that I would not let him or anyone else push me into compliance through intimidation. What I didn't expect was the sheer arrogance with which he tried to justify his actions. He was unapologetic, claiming that as an HOA official, he had the power to enforce the rules however he saw fit. But it wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about standing up for myself, my home, and my rights. This moment was a turning point. It was clear to me now that this wasn't going to be resolved with just a polite conversation. It was going to take more than that. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, karma struck in a way I never saw coming. The very next day after our heated confrontation, I received an unexpected phone call from a neighbor. They told me that the HOA official had been caught in a scandal of his own. Apparently, a group of residents had been monitoring the HOA's activities for a while, and they had uncovered something truly shocking. The official, who had been so quick to accuse others of violating rules, had been breaking the very regulations he was enforcing. He had been accepting bribes from contractors to approve illegal alterations and improvements for certain properties in the neighborhood. I couldn't believe my ears. The man who had threatened to destroy my property was now the one who was under investigation for corruption. My heart raced with a mix of disbelief and satisfaction. It was as if the universe had given me a sign that justice was indeed on its way. But the best part was yet to come. The story quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. And soon, the HOA official's reputation was in ruins. His power trip was exposed for all to see. And people were furious. Within a matter of days, the board had no choice but to suspend him pending an investigation. It was a bitterly sweet moment. The man who had tried to ruin my life and intimidate me had now become the target of his own wrongdoings. It felt like the universe had delivered instant karma, and I couldn't have been happier. The fallout from the HOA official's scandal was nothing short of satisfying. As the news of his suspension spread, I could hardly believe how quickly things had turned around. The entire neighborhood was buzzing, and many of the residents who had been too intimidated to speak out before were now coming forward with their own stories of how the HOA official had mistreated them. It seemed like everyone had a horror story about his overreach and his abuse of power. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one he had wronged. There were so many others who had been waiting for someone to stand up to him. I knew this was my opportunity to turn the tables. With the support of a few neighbors, I organized a community meeting to address the issues caused by this corrupt official. We presented our case to the HOA board, including all the evidence of his misconduct that had come to light. As the meeting unfolded, I could see the board members growing uncomfortable, realizing the extent of his corruption. It wasn't long before they voted to permanently remove him from his position and to reevaluate the way the HOA was being run. But my victory didn't stop there. I made sure that the incident was documented in the local media, so the entire town could see what had happened. In the end, not only did I protect my property, but I helped expose the abuse of power that had been plaguing the neighborhood for years. It was a sweet and well-deserved revenge, and I knew that I had taken a stand for justice, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been wronged. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more jaw-dropping HOA drama and satisfying revenge stories.